in the sunlit world of what he believes to be reality.
Top 13 Creepy Tales from the Darkside episodes, most underrated anthology horror show of all time. Who can forget Paul Sperr's foreboding introduction that was fused with the scariest opening theme ever and an ominous-looking red title? Yes, we are talking about George A. Romero's Tales from the Darkside, which undeniably had on display some of the most bone-chilling episodes of all time. Taking inspiration from the classic EC comic book of the 50s, this anthology horror television series made its debut in the year 1983 with a pilot. Originally syndicated weekly by Tribune Broadcasting after midnight, the series went on to generate 89 episodes spanning across 4 seasons from 1984 to 1988. Arching over elements of horror, science fiction, fantasy, and to some extent even black comedy, the series is fervently reminisced as the most quintessential horror anthology ever, one that was not afraid of delving into unknown territories. In this video, we're going to take you through 13 of the creepiest tales from the Darkside episodes that are bound to scare the living daylights out of you. Before we go into our list, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click from you, but it means a lot to us. Thank you. Let's begin. Inside the Closet. Directed by Tom Savini and written by Michael McDowell, Inside the Closet is the 7th episode of the first season. The plot revolves around grad student Gail Ainsley renting a room in the huge house of a professor from her college. Inside her room is a closet that hasn't been opened in a very long time. As the days go by, Gail starts hearing some rather strange noises and scampering around, which she initially assumes to be rats. However, something eventually does come out of the closet, something that Gail was probably never ready for. Full credits to Savini for coming up with such an unsettling monster, so much so that it not only became the face of the series, but it also is the cover of the DVD collection. Coming to the appearance of this creature here, it looks more like a cross between a human and a chimpanzee. The pale, chalky white skin of the creature makes it look even more scary. Goes without saying that the makeup effects are absolutely terrific. But do not make the blunder of judging Lizzie by its small size. It is not just deadly, it happens to be super quick too. It is highly capable of jumping onto the back of its victims and clawing away at them. It's so strong that it can effortlessly flip a human being, using force capable of instantly killing its victim. Inside the Closet is one of the best episodes of the entire series. The story is extremely absorbing and moves at a brisk pace with a solid impression of mystery. The single-room setting is bound to give its audience some major moments of nail-biting tension added with an unavoidable sense of claustrophobia. You also cannot miss out on Robert Draper's stunning work of cinematography here, which mostly plays with our basic fear of things like what's underneath the bed, or say what's hiding inside the closet. The fact that we as viewers can actually relate to the show makes this quite an effective little tale here. Halloween Candy. The 5th episode of the 2nd season centers around Mr. Killup, who seems to have earned the title of the meanest man on the block. Well, he is a bitter old man who not only loves to torment trick-or-treaters but equally loathes the festival too. No wonder he is paid a visit by an unexpected guest who happens to be the Halloween Goblin. It goes without saying that the old man refused to give him a candy, which in turn led the goblin into punishing him by trapping him outside of time with little to no food. Believe us when we tell you that Tom Savini's Halloween Candy conclusively happens to be one of the high points of the 2nd season. Credits to Savini for not only directing this episode so well, but also coming up with a goblin design that is actually considered as one of his best creations. The captivating story moves at a steady pace with the audience completely hooked to the screen, and we have Michael McDowell to thank for that. After all, it's his script and his exclusive concept of the goblin candy just cannot be disregarded. Starting with the hallucinations on display, candy bags filled with bugs, to the house crawling with cockroaches, things become even more disturbing as the element of suspense unfolds. Trust us when we tell you that the fittingly dark macabre climax is literally going to blow your mind. Speaking of the goblin featured, the fact that it is terribly gnarly and nasty to look at makes it all the more dreadful. Savini has been witty enough to never really give us a proper look at the monster. We only get to see it via shadows and glimpses by the window, making it look all the more mysterious and frightful at the same time. What's even more creepy is how the goblin torments the old man on a night that just does not seem to end no matter what. It has been nothing less than a delight to witness John Edward Allen in excellent makeup as the goblin uncompromisingly tormenting Roy Poole's Mr. Killup. Halloween Candy happens to be a pure classic, creepy in every way, and we highly recommend that you give this a shot.
7.
They'll always be there.
The Devil's Advocate. There are no second thoughts about this particular episode being a winner, especially when the writer happens to be Master Romero himself. The 7th episode of the 2nd season circles around the arrogant, vile, and egotistical late-night radio talk show host Luther Mandrake, who gradually begins to transform into a hideous-looking demon thanks to his constant rage and cynicism. Mandrake, in due course, learns that he has not only died, but has also been sentenced to an eternity in hell where he shall be at the receiving end of calls forever and ever. Director Michael Gornick makes full usage of the claustrophobic radio booth setting and the low budget, of course. And blessed with a witty script from Romero, he effortlessly manages to create a genuinely entertaining episode, one that will always be remembered for its morbid environment and a more than perfect plot twist ending.
Forever and ever.
Full credits to the late veteran comic actor Jerry Stiller for not only being a one-man show in this episode, but for also putting up a magnificent performance. There is no denying that Stiller literally sank his teeth into the role. His character's constant put-downs are literally going to make you detest him. From giving his callers a tough time and holding them responsible for all the problems in the world to the extent of his own bad luck, Mandrake's toxic personality and that odious grandiloquence makes him the absolute spokesperson for the devil. So, when he starts growing hair on his face, his nails get sharper, and he eventually starts to decay, you wouldn't really feel bad for him. To top it off, Ed French's special effects makeup on Mandrake is incredible. It's pretty hard to miss out on those horns in the end. Do not miss out on this creepy tale here. The Devil's Advocate inarguably happens to be the strongest half hour of the series, and also one that we highly recommend. Seasons of Belief. If you are ever blessed with the opportunity to lay your hands on a bunch of Tales from the Darkside episodes, make sure that you pick the 11th episode of the 3rd season without any hesitation. Directed and co-written by Michael McDowell, Seasons of Belief revolves around two naughty kids, Jimbo and Steffa, who don't believe in Santa Claus and end up demanding a story during Christmas. This leads their parents to tell them a special kind of Christmas story about a particular monster called Grither, who lives in an old ship within the mountainous caves of the North Pole. The specialty of this dangerous creature is the fact that it will hunt down and kill anyone who says its name, no matter how far away the person happens to be. Starring the late E.G. Marshall as the father and the beautiful Margaret Clank as the mother, this episode happens to be the epitome of a perfect creature feature on display. Michael McDowell's old-school technique of building up a creepy Christmas atmosphere where we know something is out there works brilliantly in favor of the episode. The setting of a raging snowstorm outside, a warm fireplace inside, and a traditional home setup enhances the story further. The whole mood of the straightforward narrative on display changes with the wind picking up, the Christmas lights flickering, and it would not be wrong to say that along with the children getting scared, the viewers also seem to be on the same boat.
What was that?
It was the... No, don't say his name!
Speaking of the monster here, it's true that the audience doesn't get to see it until they reach the very climax, so that kind of lets your imagination run wild. As if the entire concept of a monster residing in what happens to be the coldest and wettest part of the planet isn't scary enough, Add to it the element of terror that it hates to be talked about, and each time someone says its name, its ears tend to grow double its size and finally into big wings. No points for guessing how it travels, and mark our words when we say that it's super fast. The Grither is said to have hands that are as big as basketballs, arms as long as boa constrictors, and upon finding those who have been saying its name, it simply grithers them in. Remember the humongous arms bursting through the windows and snapping the necks of the parents? The story is quite capable of running chills down your spine even to this very day. So, to those thinking it to be a conventional Christmas story are in for a major surprise, and we insist that you put this episode in your must-watch list right away. Monsters in My Room. Young Timmy seems to be afraid of a lot of things. He is afraid of the dark, of what is inside his closet, and things under his bed. And he has his reasons too, as his room is actually filled with monsters ranging from the closet boogeyman, the tentacle octopus under his bed, a giant buzzsaw behind the dresser, to the extent of a grisly witch. To top it all off, he also has a tough time bonding with his drunken stepfather, one who just does not believe in any of his monster stories.
This is my room. This is my house. These are my toys.
Monsters in My Room happens to be a fantastic amalgamation of horror and fantasy. The fact that the story revolves around a very basic premise, one that focuses on our childhood fears about monsters living in the dark corners of the room, was something so relatable that it effortlessly made it to the list of the best Tales from the Darkside episodes. The 12th episode of the second season has this prevalent frightening atmosphere throughout, and it's still hard to get rid of a few scenes. While one of the scenes unquestionably happens to be the pair of demonic eyes staring at him from the closet, the other highlight of the episode has to be the gruesome witch that the audience gets to witness along with Timmy. Believe us, these scenes are bound to give you some rather nostalgic nightmares. Give this episode a shot for the exceedingly satisfying ending. You're going to thank us later for the recommendation. Sorry, right number. You just know it's going to be an incredible episode if it's Stephen King who decides to write the screenplay. Directed by John Harrison, the 9th episode of the 4th season has King coming up with a rather unforgettable tale about a woman receiving a mysterious and inexplicable phone call. It's sad that she happens to be a little too late when she finally gets to unravel the situation. The gripping story here moves at a very quick pace, and in the process builds up the tension pretty well. With the story unfolding, you will get to be a part of the ominous drama on display. Mind you, there aren't any real elements of horror featured here, but if you think that's what it takes to freak one out, you're in for a creepy surprise.
Bill, I'm scared.
Deborah Harmon as Katie Wiederman deserves a special commendation. She was simply outstanding in her role, and it was a treat to watch her portray the depths of emotion effectively. Guess it would not be wrong to address this episode as a thought-provoking story, one that is powerful, touching, and distressing all at the same time. Also, it's really difficult to have anticipated the surprise twist in the end. Who would have thought, right? But then again, that's precisely the charm of King's script. We have Joseph D. Urbanchik's work of cinematography along with Ken Lauber's shuddery background score giving more edge to the whole story. And if you pay close attention, you might even be lucky enough to see clips from Romero's 1985 post-apocalyptic zombie flick Day of the Dead in this very episode. Give this a shot and find out yourself. The Geezenstacks. The 5th episode of the 3rd season centers around a young girl, Audrey, who is gifted a dollhouse by her uncle that was found left behind by its previous owners in an empty house. Soon, the father starts observing eerie similarities between incidents that are taking place in the life of his own family and the events in the lives of his daughter's doll family, the Geezenstacks. If you happen to be someone who is a literal sucker for evil doll stories, or let's say creepy doll houses, you just cannot miss out on this haunting episode directed by Bill Travis. Irrefutably one of the finest episodes in the series, Nancy Doyle's cleverly written script further enhances the story, creating an exceedingly unsettling atmosphere. The dolls on display are genuinely scary. Something about their facial details, especially those dark eyes, make them look creepily menacing. Add to this a complimenting shivery background score, and you have in front of you an effective, well-crafted chiller. Let's not forget the double twist featured in the end, and believe us when we tell you that you are just not ready for it. Also, you may not know this, but the term Geezenstack actually means strange dolls. No wonder it's a solid recommendation from our end, and it just demands 20 minutes from your schedule. Do not open this box. Directed by Jodie Foster, the 15th episode of the 4th season revolves around an old, unhappy couple, the sweet-natured Charlie and his greedy, nagging wife Ruth. The wife hardly seems to be ever satisfied. She isn't fond of her husband and is always complaining about what her neighbors have. Things have been going on like this until a parcel gets mistakenly delivered to them that has "Do not open this box" engraved on it. The postman eventually comes by looking for the box, and it goes without saying that the wife has simply no intention of giving it back. Later, when the postman finally gets back the box, he realizes that it's been opened despite what was written, and now it needs to be refilled.
Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord in vain. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's possessions.
Foster effortlessly manages to keep this story captivating and makes it move along at a commendable pace. Thanks to Bob Balaban and Franco Amuri's witty script here that gives this episode a nice, offbeat touch. We also have Stephen Ross's work of cinematography here, one that provides a rather neat look given that the incidents of the episode mostly happen inside a house. To watch Eileen Heckard as the obnoxious, annoying wife has been nothing less than a treat here. You will end up hating her character to such an extent that the climax featured here might actually be quite satisfactory to you. The fact that the box gets open might be a predictable thing, but the manner in which it has been played out is bound to interest you. Also, the whole idea of a postman collecting souls and then locking them inside boxes is quite creepy. So it would not be wrong to say that this episode here is quite dark and works pretty well for a nice Darkside episode. Do Not Open This Box positively deserves a watch. Ursa Minor. Susie happens to love her stuffed teddy bear, something she got as a birthday present from her parents, but soon she starts to blame her teddy bear for every mischief caused in the house. Of course, the mother is driven to the edge thanks to the constant damage taking place and her daughter denying to take the ownership. When you have giant bear claws ripping through the door, slashing at the walls, and the scene moves to a mother clasping her equally terrified daughter in horror and shrieking, you know this is the sort of episode which will linger with you for a while. Yes, we are talking about the 10th episode of the 2nd season, Ursa Minor, which indisputably had one of the most unforgettable endings featured. Written and directed by Ted Gershuni, the episode does a pretty good job of being an upfront horror-themed story keeping a child's toy at its center with a sole intention of spooking out the audience. Believe us, it does the job. Speaking of the stuffed bear on display, the close-up shots of the glowing red eyes, aided with an eerie background score, and the frequent growling sounds makes it for quite a sinister setting. Full credits to Gershuni for keeping the mystery tight till the very ending. Also, the reference to Goldilocks and the Three Bears makes the narrative all the more exciting, giving it a considerable lift, and we only wish that Goldilocks wasn't ripped to shreds. Easily one of the creepiest episodes from the series that deserves to be watched. The Circus. This is one Tales from the Darkside episode topping in terms of gore, violence, and creepiness. And why wouldn't it be? We do have Romero blessing us with a story yet again along with the ace direction of Michael Gornick. This first episode of the 3rd season centers around Dr. Neese, who happens to be the founder as well as the ringmaster of the Circus Exhibition of Wonder, one that features real-life monsters as its main highlight. Meanwhile, investigative journalist Bragg, who is majorly into exposing frauds and conmen, ends up probing deeper into the matters of the circus to prove that they are nothing more than actors in makeup, only to grasp a little too late that he shouldn't have been so quick to jump to conclusions.
Reanimated corpse.
Often regarded as the best episode featured in the whole series, the Circus happens to be quite ironic and disturbing, given that the person who actually comes to expose things, calling it a hoax, ends up as part of the troupe. Goes without saying that this episode here has a lot of high points. For starters, we have a ghoulish-looking vampire here residing in a coffin who's got quite an appetite for lambs apart from his regular fodder that ranges from snakes to rodents. Next, we have a werewolf still in human form who's kept inside a rusty cage. We also get to witness a reanimated corpse who looks a lot like Frankenstein's monster, and a desiccated mummy whose eyes still appear to move. Creepy enough?
In the mystery of nature.
This twisted horror-themed story might not come across to many as an original, but believe us when we tell you that it's gripping enough to have you glued to your seats. Also, the incredible violin background score enhances the spooky, unsettling, yet flavorsome atmosphere of the episode. This goes out to every fan of the Tales from the Darkside series. You have to watch this. The Last Car. It would not be wrong to address the 19th episode of the second season as an edge-of-your-seat thrill ride. Directed by John Strysick and written by Michael McDowell, the narrative shows college student Stacy boarding the last car of a train to make it to her home for Thanksgiving. But whenever the train passes through a tunnel, strange and ominous events start occurring, and it does not take Stacy long to discover the horrendous truth not only about the train, but also its passengers. Believe us when we tell you that this episode is all about intensity and its eerie dark atmosphere. With a plethora of scenes to flaunt, each shot haunting and creepy in its own way, the story here is a metaphor for death. McDowell's absorbing script smoothly draws one in from the very first scene and keeps the audience guessing and wanting to know more. Not even for one moment does the episode lack its sheen, and this just shows that even with a limited budget and a healthy dose of imagination, one can create wonders. Hats off to the production team for weaving the perfect supernatural environment around. The Last Car features a lot of scenes that can easily be termed as the high points here. Remember the scene where Stacy sees her own reflection ominously shutting the blinds over the window? That's eerily capable of sending shivers up and down your spine. Also the scene where her character finds the entire train filled with the desiccated skeleton corpses of the long-dead passengers. You have to watch this episode to experience the terror. Do not miss out on this train ride to hell. Trick or Treat. Directed by Bob Balaban and written by George A. Romero along with Franco Amuri, Trick or Treat happens to be the standalone episode of Tales from the Darkside. The plotline features Gideon Hackles, who happens to be a rich, stingy, mean old man with a fixation for documenting and exploiting debts owed to him. As a part of his yearly Halloween tradition, Gideon allows the local trick-or-treaters a chance to look for their parents' hidden IOUs in his house, only to have fun later when the poor children get terrified of his animatronic ghost that he purposely used to scare the hell out of them. But during the course of the night, Mr. Hackles gets his due comeuppance, and trust us when we tell you that it wasn't a pleasant one.
Hey, you.
Trick or treat.
This particular episode gets brownie points for being an incomparable plot, thanks to Romero. The story works because the plot happens to be conventional and not something over the top. The spooky Halloween atmosphere, along with Ed French's impressive creation, are an absolute delight to witness on screen. Many of you might not know this, but the devil on display happens to be none other than French himself. Also, it was more than a treat to watch Frances Shaney essay the role of the mysterious, cackling witch. She was simply outstanding, especially in the scene where she brought the fake monsters of Mr. Hackles to life. While many have compared the premise of this episode with Halloween Candy, it's up to you to decide which one did you like more. We recommend giving both the episodes a definite shot.
It's going to be a wonderful anniversary.
Anniversary dinner. Henry and Eleanor happen to be an elderly couple who are gearing themselves up to ring in their 25th wedding anniversary. As for female hiker Sybil, she has just broken up with her boyfriend and the couple invites her to join them in their celebrations. But unbeknownst to Sybil, the couple has their own plans of serving a rather particular and repulsive dish for the special occasion. Directed by John Strysick and written by James Houghton, the 13th episode of the first season happens to be based on a short story written by DJ Pass. The episode has this sinister environment right from the beginning, and you can't help but notice that something seems to be a bit off about this country couple. Alice Ghostly, as the overtly sweet, charming, and graceful Mrs. Eleanor Collender, has on display a certain character that's exceedingly warped and wicked, and yet you wouldn't be able to figure that out till you reach the climax. It's hard to dismiss the scene that shows her throwing vegetables in the hot tub and telling Sybil to eat whatever she wants from there. Full credits to Strysick for coming up with such a delicious macabre tale and at such a comforting pace.
I think we should share it with the children.
The twisted climax on display not only makes the whole episode stand out, but it also unquestionably happens to be one of the very best in the entire series. Don't believe us? Watch it for yourself.
This is all the time we had for today's episode. We hope you guys liked it. It would be awesome if you guys can take some time to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to tell us which topic you want us to cover in the comment section. Have a fantastic day ahead and stay safe.